Hello guys and girls, welcome to Games Plus Movies' first retrospective. This is basically a podcast, but you can look at footage of a video game as I talk. Isn't that great? Isn't it amazing how technology allows us to do things? We're talking about Killzone 2 here today because they've just turned the multiplayer servers off. I thought we'd take a look back at Killzone 2. I played maybe an hour of the multiplayer on the day that they turned it off, obviously before they turned it off, and I had a lot of fun going back to it. It had been a while, so I kind of sucked compared to when I was at my peak Killzone multiplayer-ness. But I enjoyed myself, I had fun, and we're going to look at me playing it at some point here. I used the Elgato to record, and the PS3 through an Elgato is a nightmare to record, just because you have to use component cables. You can't use HDMI because Sony... they're fucking dumb. Anyway, so the footage, when we get to it, doesn't look great. I don't know if I'm showing it now or not. I don't know how this is going to edit out at the end, but we're going to find it together. You and me, we're going to figure out how this works together, and it's a relationship, and I love you. Let's make love to each other right now. No. What am I talking about? Oh, Killzone 2. Killzone 2. 13 years ago, Killzone 2 was announced at E3 2005. And they announced it with, it's a CG trailer. Now, E3 2005 was interesting for Sony. PS3... we knew it was coming. They had basically announced the PS3, and I think that was the year they showed off the Boomerang controller, as it's known now, which would just later become the 6-axis, which is just a regular-looking PlayStation controller. The E3 show for 2005 was... well, it wasn't as bad as 2006. The 2006 one is infamous at this point. But 2005 was mostly tech demos. They showed very early footage of what would later become games, some things not games. They showed very early footage of Gran Turismo, a Gran Turismo game, didn't have a name. They showed very early footage of a first-person shooter from Insomniac that would later become Resistance. They showed a tech demo of a... what do you call it? the words service station, or petrol station, is what I'm trying to get at. And anyway, that demo would later become 8 days, but it didn't become 8 days because 8 days never came out. They also showed Heavenly Sword for the first time, and Warhawk. These were mostly actual video games, very early footage, but then when Killzone 2 showed up, it was a full CG trailer, and there was a lot of confusion at the time, because most of what we'd seen had been real-time gameplay, and then Killzone 2 shows up and it looks fucking amazing, and everyone's like, is that real? Is that CG? Is that a render? What is that? And it also happened with Motorstorm, but there was less confusion with Motorstorm. I think from the outset it was pretty obvious that Motorstorm was a CG trailer, but Killzone 2 was a little harder to define, and I think it was mostly agreed upon that it was a CG trailer, but what really added to the confusion was Jack Tretton, may he rest in peace. He's not dead, he just doesn't work for Sony anymore. But Jack Tretton came out and he was like, oh, that was real. That's real time running on hardware, and from all the stories I've heard, Guerrilla heard that, and they were like, no, that's No, don't say that. Because it was a CG trailer. It was a target render, as they call it. It's what they were aiming for with the game. And because they had shown that trailer and it got so much attention for looking as good as it did, they had to up the amount of people that were working on the game, and they wanted to make it look really fucking good in the final game. 2 years later, 2007 E3, they showed a new trailer that was real time. It looked amazing. It came really, really close to that target. It wasn't quite there. It wasn't exactly as good as that target render. You know, some of the effects, when you're going from a full CG render to real time, some of the effects don't hold up. But it came really, really close to looking like that target render, which was quite an achievement at the time, especially when you look at things now. Certain games, I'm not going to name names, but certain games get shown off real early, and they look fantastic, and then they come out and they don't even come close to looking as good as what that original footage was. Killzone 2 was one of those games where it came extremely close. Even in that very early real-time footage. And when the game came out, it looked even better than that 2007 footage. It's amazing what Guerrilla was able to do with the PS3 and how close they were able to get the game to that target render. It's an incredible looking game. And that was kind of the big thing about it, was like, how good does this game look? And it looked fucking amazing. When it came to gameplay, it's very different from a Call of Duty or Halo or something like that, where it's kind of fast-paced. You have big areas to run around. In the case of Halo, I mean, Killzone 2 is linear like a Call of Duty, but when it comes to the weight of everything and the animation, how quick it is to aim and shoot, Killzone 2 is very slow and methodical in the way you play it. There's a weight to everything that isn't even in a lot of games these days. Killzone 2 had this certain feeling, and it carried over to Killzone 3, but I think they did make Killzone 3 and then Shadowfall very fast-paced compared to Killzone 2. And you have to think about when Killzone 2 was announced, no one was really excited for it. Before they saw the trailer, I mean. No one was like, oh, I hope a Killzone 2 is coming. Like, the first Killzone was not good. It was bad. It was the opposite of good. I've gone back and tried to play it, because I didn't play it at the time, because why would I? But I've gone back and tried to play it, and it's just bad. It's not fun at any point. I'm sure it has its fans, but I'm not one of them. I'm the opposite of a fan of Killzone. Killzone 2, however, very big fan, especially when we came to the multiplayer. Like, you can talk about the single player of Killzone 2 as well. It doesn't have much of a story. I mean, it has a story, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the fucking story of Killzone 2 is. They have to kill a dude. That's what I remember. We have to get to this place to kill a dude, and then that happens, and it's like, oh yeah, I killed the dude, and then thanks Killzone 2, but it really was about the journey. It's about the gameplay. It's about the set pieces. There are so many inventive sections to that game. So much going on. It's crazy how good it looks and how much is going on at the same time. And how good it feels. I love the feeling of the guns and the movement, and everything's, like I said before, everything's kind of slow, and the animation takes time. There's been so much care taken in making it feel a certain way, and Guerrilla really pulled it off, and I love that about Killzone 2. But now we go back to the multiplayer, and they kept the same feeling of the gameplay, but they weren't happy with just having you go and pick team deathmatch or capture the flag, whatever the thing is, the mode would be. They weren't happy with just doing that. They wanted to expand multiplayer in a way that gave everyone a chance on the team to do something. Like a lot of games these days, and even back then, you would jump in and you would choose a mode, and you may not be really good at that mode, but you want to give it a go. It's a new game. You want to try it out, see if you are any good at it. And you find out you're not that great, and you never go back to it. What Guerrilla did with Killzone 2 is drop you into this singular mode, and over the course of a match, you would have different objectives. So you would do a team deathmatch. You would defend a spot. You would have to blow up some things. There was all these different mode types in this one mode, and the end winner was chosen by however many of those modes you won in a match, rather than overall points or something. And I know there are certain games these days that do it, but Killzone 2 did it in such a way that made it fun for everyone. Like I said, even if you were bad at a certain part of the match, you could pick it up again in a different part of the match when the modes changed. And so everyone on the team got a chance to shine, and it made you want to come back and play the game more, and I did. I played it so much. It's the first multiplayer game for me on the PS3 that I wanted to keep playing and keep coming back to. The first-person shooter that made me want to come back and play it. And it lasted for me for ages, for a long time. It wasn't until Uncharted 2 came out and had multiplayer that I got into a different multiplayer game. Of course, I dabbled in Call of Duty and stuff, but nothing grabbed me quite like Killzone 2. And it's sad that now that the servers are turned off, and even though I hadn't played it for years until the other day when I recorded this footage, and I didn't do too well during this. The stuff you're watching right now, I did terrible, and I just note I couldn't hear anything. I didn't have headphones on. So I ran into a lot of grenades and shit, but you get the point of the fucking game. So rest in peace, Killzone 2 multiplayer. Obviously the single player you can go back and play, and I might do that soon. But for now, just rest in peace, Killzone 2 multiplayer. They also turned off the multiplayer for Killzone 3, but Killzone 3 didn't grab me like Killzone 2 did. Something about it, whether it was the levels or the modes or just the feel of the game, I don't know. I honestly can't tell you why Killzone 3 wasn't as good as Killzone 2. Maybe I just played too much Killzone 2 and I got comfortable with it. Kind of like people who can't get over Halo 2 or Modern Warfare. It captured me at a time and a place where I wasn't really playing these type of games, and it was my first real chance to get into something like this, and I enjoyed it, and I loved Killzone 2 multiplayer. If it had a dick, I would suck it so hard. So rest in peace, Killzone 2 and 3. And probably Shadowfall. I don't know if I imagine. Well, yes, I know those servers are still going, but who the fuck's playing Killzone Shadowfall these days? Although I did get into full matches in Killzone 2, but how much of that was reliant on it being the last day of Killzone 2 There's probably a lot. I doubt everyone's been playing it this whole time, and I'm just like, oh, geez, look at all these people that I could have been playing with. It's very unlikely. They'd probably keep the servers on if people had been playing it for that long. But anyway, that's Killzone 2's retrospective. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope you've maybe learnt something. Maybe you haven't learnt anything and I've told you nothing new at all. But even if you didn't learn anything new, hopefully you still enjoyed the video. You know what? I'm going to stop. Thank you. I'll see you again for some other video.